So the question we're going to answer in this video is, how does metacognition influence students' comprehension of academic texts? When students have academic reading difficulties, they may not naturally engage in the act of metacognition. They may need help learning self-awareness, and they may not always have strategies to help them when their comprehension fails. Similarly, metacognition is the act of internal self-regulation. So if a person is stuck on the process of decoding and their fluency is suffering, or they are laboring through unknown vocabulary, their minds may be too crowded, their working memory may be dropping important information, and they may be incapable of determining exactly why their comprehension fails. Metacognition influences students' comprehension of academic texts in the simple sense that it allows them to determine if they are comprehending, and if not, prompts them to approach the text in a new way so that they can comprehend. Students who use metacognition successfully constantly adjust how they read in response to their awareness that something's not making sense. The following list explains how the components of metacognition serve to support comprehension. So first we'll talk about planning. Planning. When you're planning, you ask questions like, what can I determine about this type of text, and how does that impact how I approach it? You plan how to approach a text based on what can be determined about the style of the text. By analyzing the type of text to be read, the reader can develop a plan for how to approach it based off of what they know about that type of text. For example, if someone, like we did, is reading a journal entry, they can go into their memory to figure out what they already know about journal entries and what reading strategies they can use to best comprehend that type of text. For the next bullet, we'll talk about monitoring comprehension. When we're talking about monitoring, we're asking questions simply like, am I comprehending this text? Or am I confused by something? This happens quickly, and it needs to be attended to quickly as well. It needs to become automatic. It sounds simple, but it's not always the case. Someone needs to be fully attending to what they are reading to be able to notice if they're not comprehending it. One big hang-up with monitoring comprehension, and one that I saw the most working with students who struggled with executive functioning, is that people don't always pay attention to what they're reading. Surprise! While this can be an easy thing to recognize, it takes a lot of work to fix that tendency. Monitoring comprehension supports comprehension because it can act as a stop sign and signal people to turn around and figure out what went wrong. Getting students into the habit of recognizing when their comprehension fails is a huge step in improving reading comprehension. Next, we'll look at adjusting. So when we're adjusting, we're asking questions like, if I'm not comprehending this text, why not? How can I adjust my approach or strategy so I understand it? Adjusting strategies based on any confusion or lack of comprehension is kind of like the scientific method. The idea is that the reader attempts to approach a certain text in a certain way. When they come across a speed bump or something they don't comprehend, they need to think about if that impacts their ability to comprehend the text as a whole, and if so, what can they do about it? Maybe they have several strategies, so they may try to approach the text in a different way. They reflect on whether and how well that new strategy worked. If it worked well, they can keep going. If it also failed, they need to try another strategy. They can do this over and over again until they determine the best way to approach the specific text and finally comprehend it. Similar to the scientific method, they do some research, make a hypothesis, experiment, conclude, and do the whole thing over again. Only during the act of reading, metacognition should happen rather quickly and become automatic. So those are three components of how metacognition influences reading comprehension. In the next video, I'll share some examples of how to teach metacognition and help it to become automatic for your students.